Today's episode, we're going to be talking and understanding a little bit more the mission of the Decon group.
And figuring out a couple of the corridor requirements, so take a listen. You know the worst part of arriving at a hazmat scene?
Trying to find excuses in the summertime as the tech ref to stay inside the air-conditioned rig.
That is masterful, but uncertainty, right? You have no idea what's in the air.
Yeah, this whole assuming it's just the chemical, to be honest with you, it doesn't really cut it anymore. You need answers and you need them fast.
And that's where the Explorer comes in. They have real-time chemical ID and quantification right in the field.
No more just sitting there being like, I don't know, it's probably something bad. This device gives you exactly what's there in exact quantity that exists.
Yeah, and so you can set up your safety zones like an adult and not some rookie that's guessing where to put up the tape.
Which is going to give you defensible, quantitative data in seconds, making your decision-making a whole lot easier.
So no more waiting around for an answer, just solid, life-saving intel.
So if you want to learn more about the Explorer and stop guessing, go to 908devices.com.
And on a hazmat call, the question is never if radiation matters. It's where you're going to find it.
Yeah, and half the time it finds you first, all right? Which is why on almost every unknown, we always have some kind of a radiological detection with us.
Because one of the things is you're not going to see it, you're not going to smell it, you're not going to taste it. And if you miss it, you're probably going to be already inside it.
And if you understand that, you can understand why teams are running the Teledyne FLIR defense identifiers.
And this isn't a one-size-fits-all tool. They got a whole handheld RID, wearable personals, and backpack systems.
Which means that whatever task you have on your job, whether you're the first guy walking into a building or you're building out the bigger picture, there's something that's going to fit your job.
And these aren't theory tools. They are out there getting use every day by teams who are actually relying on radiation data to make decisions.
And if you want to learn more about FLIR, and I highly suggest you do, search the FLIR Identifinder. That's FLIR, F-L-I-R, Identifinder.
And don't forget, today's episode is brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices, who just launched their 4th generation handheld Raman meter, the Icon X.
Visit RigakuAnalytics.com if you want to learn more about their fast, safe, and accurate chemical analyzation.
Yeah, here we go. What's going on? I don't know. Oh, I know what it is. You know what? Enjoy this little scene while I fix the problem.
While Bob's fixing that problem, let me tell you a little bit something about what we're doing today. It is probably, to be honest with you, the least trained part of any hazmat class. And I can say any hazmat class because I promise you every hazmat class, especially your initial class, is going to touch on decon. Yet it is one of it's like the joke of the training, right? Like I know most of my decon training was always just like, hey, we're cleaning you off. We're going to kind of pretend, going to tap the brush on the foot and kind of move forward. But we don't really talk about what it takes to do a proper decon setup. And we dive really deep into this during our decon specialist class, which is a 3-day class on decon in and of itself. And I know you could be sitting there being like, holy crap, like what could you be talking about for decon for 3 freaking days? But let me tell you, there's a lot. There's a lot to go over. And here's the problem. If you're a technician, right, you turn around and go, okay, well, I'm more than likely not going to be in the decon corridor. Like, they're going to be washing me. I don't need to know how to set any of this crap up because they're going to be washing me. And if you're an operations level person, you're going, I don't need to know any of this crap. Somebody's going to tell me what to do when I get there. And there's no in between. And then you have the poor sucker who's responsible for setting it all up, who hasn't been trained on any of this, because if they're a technician, they are thinking they're going to be getting cleaned. And if you're in operations, you're thinking somebody's going to tell me what to do. So here it is. This class really breaks down the nuances in all the different decon, the decon methods, the thought processes behind it. So we kind of wanted to start to take a glimpse into this thought process to really kind of get your mind going. And we're going to start with converting the plan into an operation. So in order to do that, we first need to seriously understand the mission of the Decon group, right? And if you sit there and you're like, well, duh, you freaking idiot, it's Decon. Yes, I get it. But what are the smaller objectives of the group, right? So like one of the things that we want to say when we're starting to set this up is I want to support the incident commander, which means I'm building a corridor that's going to help support the current operational objectives that have been set forth by the upper echelon. So how does that look when if you're just walking on scene and somebody goes, okay, we need to set up Decon, and you just start setting up Decon, you are missing a big picture, because if you don't understand the mission at hand and what's happening, how can you even start to set up the correct corridor? I mean, there's 14 different types of Decon that's out there, so how do you even know what the hell you're setting up?
14.
14.
I know two.
There's 14 listed. It's either 12 or 14 listed in NFPA, and I'm sure there's more.
It's wax on, wax off. Come on, it's it's
contamination on, contamination off.
No, but that's a good point, because it's when you go through technician class, you're thinking about everybody wants to be the hero, right? And so everybody's like, I'm on entry, I'm doing a tech ref and everything, and everybody's like, oh, great, I get to wash a car. That's awesome.
You're right.
So a lot of people, they don't really spend a lot of time in it, because it's implied that like you inherently as a human being know how to wash somebody, and the amount of time that's spent on that relative to other topics, I'm going to say, is not as much. It wouldn't probably be an equal pie if you looked at it. No. I bet you the pie would be a sliver.
Yeah, and we've seen it, Bob. You can't tell me you haven't seen it. I know you've seen it, that on an actual incident, a large-scale incident, like let's say theoretically a steam pipe explosion in lower Manhattan, the decon falls apart. And I'm not talking about like the fall apart like nobody gets decon, but that initial setup becomes chaos. And even running through becomes chaos, because we don't train properly on the actual techniques in and of themselves.
All right. So one of the first things that we have to worry about as far as, supporting that incident command objective is to know that you have to be flexible. And this is one of the things that is I think you've heard us on many a show condemn the three-pool circus, but the three-pool circus, once you set that circus in the ground, it was functionally there. That was it. But objectives change, wind changes, people change. You got I don't want to say missions creep, but decon creep. Right? So you have to be able to flex that entire operation constantly with this evolution.
Yeah, you need to understand that while at the same time understanding that the decon corridor exists to facilitate the mission. It's not the mission in and of itself, right? So that means that we have to somehow find this kind of weird balance between setting it up properly, making sure it's flexible, making sure that the mission can change and therefore the decon can change without having so much manpower just on the decon that we lose the ability to actually perform other aspects of the run in and of itself. So it's a very tricky balance, and we often see the poor sucker who's dedicated to becoming like the decon group supervisor. They are just ready to shit themselves.
There's a lot riding on the guy.
there is, with very little training.
I make this argument all the time in class, is that if you're the biggest decision we make in the world of hazmat is picking the right PPE. Right, because the objective is to send a guy downrange to the worst chemical, on the planet, bring him back, get him out of the suit, send him home, and let him have a long and fruitful life, right? And so your primary objective in decon is you're going to get some information back from tech ref, but your deal is to protect responders and victims, right? Your whole thing is preventing secondary contamination, because the primary contamination is done during the mitigation. You know you're going to get dirty by the act of mitigation. So my objective is to prevent or reduce at least the secondary contamination during the movement between those hazard zones.
Do you remember, kids don't play this game anymore, but I believe it was called Red Rover. And
Red Rover. And
kids,
Michael Rover.
They would lock themselves into a line, and somebody would try to like run through the line of kids with their all their elbows and arms hooked. That's kind of what decon is like, right? Like you're trying to keep the contamination on that side of the line, right? If the contamination is the poor sucker designated to break that line, the people in the decon are the Red Rover walls. So there's different ways that we can do that, right? We need to not only learn how to clean and do all those other things, but ultimately, no matter what method you choose, you are looking to support a safe PPE removal because we want to keep that contamination on that side of the wall. So as a primary objective, however the mission changes, however the looks change, your primary objective is going to be safe removal of PPE.
And with that, you're going to try to reduce the cross-contamination, right, or contamination, transfer from personnel to personnel, or equipment to personnel, personnel to equipment, to facilities. Your job is to make it stick. And I love, I don't want to get too much into this, but I love when we say, okay, we're going to establish a hot zone at this. And then we're like, do you understand that number is going to shift? It's going to sweep. It's going to move higher and lower, and it's geographically going to move.
Yeah, it constantly is going from one spot to another, which becomes a logistical issue because another thing that we have to think about is maintaining operational flow. So, depending on the size of the situation, depending on the number of victims, technical decon, non-technical decon, emergency decon, one of the key aspects to maintaining a good corridor is maintaining operational flow. You basically need to be a troubleshooter, and your key goal is going to be avoid bottlenecks, because bottlenecking means that people have to wait, and if people are on air, they're going to lose air, and if they're not on air and they're injured and they start to panic, like that can lead to a bunch of different things. So maintaining constant supervision of the situation and being able to anticipate, 10 minutes from now, 20 minutes from now, an hour from now, how does this decon look, and am I set up properly? Those are the things that are going to help you restrict bottlenecking.
And with that, if you think you're going to be able to decon, like 2 people are going to be able to wash this 30-person incident, you are going to have to coordinate with entry and rescue and medical and safety, because if they just descend on you and you don't have any idea of how to triage them, and decon takes people.
Yeah, it takes time and effort and air and cartridges and equipment, and all those things need to be taken into account, not just to start the operation, but if you're going to continuously sustain the operation throughout the entirety of the hazmat entry. That takes preparation as well, and understanding what's happening, understanding what the firefighters or operations level people have been tasked to do. How long can they do that for? And do I have them on air? Well, that limits my time right there. By the time my first set of decon guys are getting into place, I need to make sure that I've got more guys ready to take their place, because they're going to need bottle changes at some point. You can't just stand there forever. You got to be able to swap people out. So making sure continuous operation throughout the entirety of the hazmat becomes one of the critical pieces as well.
Now, with that being said, we have to determine, what do you need? What's the requirements that we have here? And we're going to have to do... It's not a one-size-fits-all, right? It's going to be something like you're going to match the corridor with your mission. And to do that, we're going to identify whether the operation is supporting responder decontamination, right? What else?
Yep. Patient movement, equipment processing, multiple objectives could be in play that the decon... is it commander? Well, who's it? Decon group supervisor, right?
Yeah, I think.
I'm
Well,
saying
he's
that
a
right?
decon leader or something like that.
Decon leader,
his
yeah,
name
yeah,
is.
because it wouldn't be necessarily a chief. Well, listen, if the operation was big enough, it could be headed by a chief by all means, right? But all these things kind of need to go into play because they could be happening simultaneously, right? I may need to be processing equipment because another entry team is going in, while at the same time a second entry team is in the process of coming out, and all their personnel has to be done while I have it. It can become an extremely complex operation.
Yeah. But first,
Battery fires, baby.
yeah.
First, let's talk about battery fires and how battery fires are starting to change how we think about suppression.
Because for years it was water, and then cool it and chase it and hope it stays out.
Yeah, but now we've got, through the glorious magic of lithium-ion batteries, right? We are changing how we look at these things because it's no longer about controlling it, right? It becomes keeping it from propagating, keeping a reignition cycle from happening.
Which is where some of these newer agents are starting to actually make some sense.
Which is why we started to look at the TRF Plus from Fire Suppression Solutions. It's one of those products where we don't just turn around and be like, hey, it works and it's going to work on everything, because we're not looking to have it replace everything, but we're looking to understand how it works and when it works, because we want it to be another tool in the toolbox when your traditional playbook doesn't work.
And that is something that can be applied early, help limit the spread, gives you another option because it's just flooding the thing and just waiting.
Yeah, and depending on how your team operates, they've got different methods for dispersing this. So you need smaller portable operations, they've got it. You need bulk kits because you've got a ton of batteries in your area, they've got that covered as well.
So this isn't just us saying, here's the answer. It's us saying the problem is changing, and this is one of the tools that makes sense for your playbook.
So if you want to look into it a little bit more, go to Fire Suppression Solutions or click on the link in the show notes below and see how TRF can fit into your response model.
And staying in that vein, you know what I love about the city?
Really crispy, thin crust pizza.
E-scooter gangs.
Oh, yes, the scooter gangs. I got to tell you, nothing screams hazmat more than a moped that's ready to go nuclear.
And that's where Obexian FR saves the day again.
It's lightweight, mobile-friendly, and designed for us, the first responder, because the last thing we need is some extra weight while things are starting to heat up.
And it's third-party tested to lower toxic gases below the ideal H levels.
So it's going to give you a little bit of a safety factor when you're putting out that scooter fire.
And if you need more, Obexian FR comes by the pallet or a certified polydrum kit.
Which is perfect when you're sitting there going, holy crap, we're going to need a lot of this.
So protect your team and your lungs. Learn more to go to thehazmatguys.dgeo.com. That's thehazmatguys.dgeo.com. Oh, back. Now, one of the things that we have to worry about is scaling this corridor to the expected operational tempo. All right. What I find a lot of times. Go ahead.
How would you do that, Bob? So, like, you're the Decon group supervisor. You're looking. What ways are you going to be trying to predict the future of the needs of the Decon as you're kind of setting this stuff up?
I would get the typical single lane operation going, and then rapidly expand it to multiple lanes. Like, I wouldn't go to a grocery store that had one checkout counter. That would be the worst one ever. You want one that has like 6 or 7, so that even when lane 2 is clogged and lane 4 has somebody that's cutting coupons, that you can go to 3 and speed through that thing. So there might be an expedited group, there might be a tools group, there might be an ambulatory group, a non-ambulatory, a low air group. You can have as many lanes as possible as with your manpower expecting.
So you're just kind of contracting and expanding the corridor for the future, right? If I saw 2 or 3 teams starting to walk in to do a joint entry, I'm going to start turning around and I'm going to start expanding out that decon, because if they're going in at the same time, more than likely they're going to want to come out at the same time.
Yep, I agree. So, which brings us to the identifying some constraints. You're going to have some stuff. And one of the probably the most significant constraints you're going to have out there in the field is people. How many people? And luckily, One of the things you can do is, if you're a technician, you can run a cadre of operations people because they're supposed to be trained in decon.
Yeah, that works out really, really good because it allows us, the technicians, to supervise multiple people doing a job. And it's honestly one of the great things about the dry decon is that I significantly reduce the number of personnel that are needed in order to get one person from dirty to clean. Available equipment, however, plays a huge role in this as well. You know, you go to a department that's not as well funded, and maybe they don't have tons of different, specialized fiber tech wipes and this and that. And you're just kind of doing what you got to do with paper towels and a spray bottle of water. So what equipment you have available is going to drastically impact the type of corridor and the type of decon that is going to be available.
You said it before, is water supply. And depending on the methodology you use for your decontamination, the older way, you had a significant amount of water required to do the decon, and then a significant amount of water to clean up after the decon because you had to overpack it. The newer ways are much more lean in the water department, where you need very little to do an equal or more superior product.
With a way superior finish.
Ooh.
I feel like a car salesman, right? Like, look at how nice this glows. But it's true, and the dry decon supports different weather conditions a little bit better, right? Obviously, if it's raining, whatever, that's a great form of wet decon. Nothing you can do about that. But you go to some places in North America, and it could be springtime and minus 10 degrees out, and guess what? You are not flowing water at minus 10 degrees in a pop-up pool. So weather conditions play a tremendous factor. Weather conditions play a factor as well, even in the dry decon method, right? So I have a product that would normally vaporize very, very quickly in a relatively hot 80-degree day. And if it's minus 4 degrees, well, I can no longer turn around and put that person in front of a fan because the vapor pressure is going to have dropped. So our weather plays significant, it has a significant impact on the type of decon and the methods by which we're performing those decons.
Even the space you have, your footprint. Right? If I have a limited footprint, yes, there are options to do modified decontamination techniques, which you can find in the class. But like there's ways that you can, many ways to skin the cat. You don't have the luxury of fields in Nebraska. You might have a sky lobby on the 68th floor that you have 12 by 12, and you got to do the decon for everybody.
Yeah. Which kind of also goes into the terrain conditions. When we're dealing with a heavy water type of a decon, our terrain really makes a difference. Like I could be very limited because as a technical decon, I'm now outside of those EPA guidelines for an emergency. If you're doing a technical decon, it's generally considered to be a non-emergency event, and you are therefore responsible for every drop of water that you use in the decon. So if I'm on hills, if I have pitches and things like that, that type of decon, the way that corridor is structured, might alter completely.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the coordination with incident command, because you're going to have to talk a lot with them. And that means you're going to have to probably be reaffirming what the incident commander's priorities are. Like if he, and what I mean by that is if he's going from aggressive mitigation because he doesn't want to do the shelter in place versus the evacuation kind of thing, well, that means guys are getting more dirty. Guys are getting less dirty. There's less guys getting dirty. There's more guys getting dirty. We're going to have more civilians. All those things change your entire operation. You might have to scale it wider, smaller, deeper, more people. It's going to change your whole operation.
But in order to do that, you have to first maintain really good communications. The decon group supervisor is not somebody who can just kind of detach themselves from the command structure and just wait for people to wander into their area to start cleaning. You have to constantly be aware of what's happening and the situation, and you can't do that if you don't have good communications established.
Yeah, and one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to expect there's a certain cadence to people coming in and out. and it is dependent on a very delicate balance of the talent of the decon people actually doing the washing and the guy in the line. Like if the guy's an absolute knucklehead in the line, he's going to slow down the whole thing. And that's why I'm a big fan of having multiple checkout lanes, because, old Joe can slow down aisle 2 and then you can put everybody else. You can put 4 people through aisle 3 because you just got a more talented group going through there. So like if a guy has a problem or whatever, he might have to go to the slow lane, the local lane, as opposed to the HOV lane.
One of my favorite sayings came from one of my favorite boxers, Mike Tyson, and that is, everybody's got a plan till a motherfucker gets punched in the mouth. And that couldn't be more true for decon as well. You have to coordinate contingency plans, right? Be ready to be able to change at a moment's notice, and don't just get stuck on what's in front of you.
Yeah. So check out that new course. Come and see what we got. I promise you it's good.